There's so many ways we think about drug addiction that are just plain wrong, and that stigma can make a person feel like they're all alone. If you know someone who is living with addiction, reach out, make the connection, have the conversation, stop the stigma.
Here he is, Jeff Paterson, one half of the Rink Wide duo with Andrew Watt, and they were ultra busy this weekend with a pair of wins for the Vancouver Canucks. And, of course, our Vancouver Canucks report, Mr. Jeff Paterson. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Lots to digest, lots to process, and as you said, a lot of wins all of a sudden for the Vancouver Canucks, and obviously those were in short supply earlier in the season.
Season-high 3-game winning streak. I think it was last week where we asked, do they have a winning streak in them? I'm not sure 3 qualifies, but certainly we're now in the neighborhood of monitoring that going into Tuesday's game against Washington. We'll start with the Bodog poll question, Jeff, and go from there. Is the playoff push back on?
Yeah, I suppose it is, and that won't thrill a lot of the fan base and a lot of our listeners, because really all it does is push them into that sort of mushy middle again that they've been kind of trapped in for too long now. But, watered down Western Conference, when teams like Calgary and Nashville and Minnesota and Edmonton have all kind of spun their wheels to some degree, all of a sudden you win 5 of 6, and yeah, you make up some ground. But I would suggest to you that I need to see. And 5 of 6 is good, especially when you go 0 for in your first 7. They needed something like this to get back into relevance in the Western Conference. So 5 of 6 is good. Talk to me after another 5 out of 6 here. Like if they make it 10 out of 12, then all of a sudden maybe I'm buying a little bit more that they're back and they figured a bunch of things out. But all this has done is 5 of 6 has got them closer to the bar, but not even above the playoff bar yet. So it's hard to get terribly excited. That said, I don't think anybody really had much more of an appetite to watch them squander leads and to struggle defensively. And look, they weren't perfect in San Jose. That third period, they looked like a tired team, and that was the Sharks that had them running around and on the ropes. But, in the end, they found a way to win, and they continue to do it. And clearly part of their formula, and I guess this is the question, is it sustainable? 4 more goals last night. They still have yet to win that 3-2 or 2-1 hockey game that they need 4 goals to win. And so the offense is good and it's fun and the right guys are scoring for them. But you go back a couple of weeks, they were held to 2 goals in 3 straight games in Montreal, Toronto, and Boston. Guess what? They didn't win those games. And so there are nights where their offense is going to be held in check. But on this run of 5 wins and 6, and even the 1 loss, that was the one that they flushed against Vegas at home. They scored 4 that night as well. So they have scored 4 or more in 6 straight games now. You just wonder, can they keep that up?
Well, we also said that they needed goaltending, and they're starting to get some goaltending, which the eye test doesn't necessarily tell you, because of the 6 games that we're talking about, only twice did they allow fewer than 3 goals. But when you look at the stats, and perhaps this is a condemnation still of the defense, because the save percentages of the 2 goalies in these 6 games, .919 for Thatcher Demko, .916, I believe, for Spencer Martin, those are high save percentages, which tells you they're surrendering a lot of shots still. But the good news is the goaltenders seem to be stopping a lot of them.
Right. They got outshot 19-6 in the third period in San Jose. Now, it was the second of back-to-backs, and so probably a little bit of fatigue there. But there were some chances. And, it just shows you what a difference it makes when they do get some stops from Thatcher Demko. And I thought he was good in the third period. I know he got beaten twice, one of them the deflection on the power play, and the other that dreaded cross-seam pass that sort of creeped back into their game. They had eliminated it a little bit here of late, but Erik Karlsson with time to deal, and he finds Luke Kunin. And who would have ever thought that somebody should have reminded the Canucks to keep Luke Kunin under wraps, but scored twice in the hockey game. The first one was probably as strange a goal as we're going to see all season, the alley-oop. Look, they're still a flawed bunch. It's the same defensive core. I do think one thing, though, now, as they have put some wins together, one thing to keep in mind is this is as good a lineup as the Canucks can ice. They are as healthy as they can possibly be. And in those first 10 games, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, Ilya Mikheyev, Curtis Lazar, there were a bunch of guys that missed time. All of a sudden now, Bruce Boudreau is able to roll out the same lineup. He's getting some cohesion in his defensive pairs. I think he's finding chemistry in his forward lines. And so it stands to reason when the Canucks put NHLers in their lineup, like they had games earlier this season where they had Rathbone and Brisebois and Noah Juleson on the defense. This is a defense core that is better. Ethan Bear is settling in. I didn't like the play that he made on the third San Jose goal last night where he had a chance to clear and he didn't. But overall, I think he's settled in. He has settled OEL down. I think he's taken some of the workload off Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and so Les has been a little bit more there. And OEL, by the way, into double digits in points. He's got 10 assists now. Picked up another one on that Paterson deflection. So I just think that they were better. I think we all believe they were better than the results in those 7 games. They should have found a way to finish a few of them off. And so I think now when you're seeing a healthy Vancouver Canucks team, that they're better. There's no doubt. This is a better bunch, and I do think that cohesion and chemistry is playing into some of these results. But it does beg the question, better, yes, but how good ultimately, and is it good enough to overcome the flaws of this roster construction?
Well, I was going to state the case for excitement. You did a lot of it there, Jeff, with regards to the cohesion, the good health, the goaltending's getting better. They played their best game of the year on Saturday. They came back, win another game back-to-back, tough spot. And they have a ton of home games coming up in what is a pretty weak still Western Conference. So, I mean, I see that channel there. I see why some Canucks fans are getting more excited. Do I think it's a contending team? No, but we all started this year going, this should be a playoff team. And, when I take a look at the West right now and I take a look at the Vancouver Canucks, I think they're right in it.
Yeah, and I would agree. And some of that is due to the struggle. I didn't see the Calgary Flames struggling the way that they have, but there they are. Are they going to get better? Yeah, probably. But how much better? And clearly they've got some flaws of their own. The caveat in your statement there, Matt, to me is just being at home. This team hasn't been very good at home for a long time now. They weren't last year. They lost more than they won on home ice last season. And what do they have? 3 home ice wins so far, I think, in 8 games this time around. So, yeah, you want to be at home, the comforts of home, sleep in your own bed, tired teams coming in, all that kind of stuff, crowd behind you if you put on a show. But just being at home, looking ahead at the schedule and saying, hey, this team's at home, look out. They haven't shown me, they don't get the benefit of the doubt just because they have not made home ice any sort of fortress. In fact, I think they've played better games this season, the bulk of their better games, away from home. And they've played a lot of road games, too. So it does have to balance out. Now it's a chance. So, yes, absolutely, the path is there. But saying it isn't enough, they got to get out there and make it happen.
Yeah, and law of averages, I would think they get better at home. And law of averages also, they get better protecting leads, Jeff. They've scored the first goal in 6 straight games, 7 of the last 8. Can we anticipate they'll get better protecting leads as the season goes along? Seems like they already have.
Yeah,
in a small sample here.
Yeah, I mean, last Monday's game against Vegas, notwithstanding, they have, for the most part, been able to get these games across the line, and that's how they have 5 wins in their last 6. But in saying that as well, the Colorado game, they trailed after getting the first goal. They were down in the third period and mounted the comeback, and we all marveled there because it was a flip of the script. Even last night, San Jose ties the game at 1 late in the second. They get the power play goal. It's a 2-1 game for San Jose, and you thought, oh, man, I've seen this way too many times from the Canucks. And so, then they exchanged goals, and where did 4 goals come from in the third period? That was the sleepiest first 40 minutes of the season.
I saw you tweeting about that.
Yeah, there was nothing happening in that hockey game, and then all of a sudden there was this explosion of goals. But in the end, the Canucks' best players stepped up, and now they didn't all do it together as a line because Kuzmenko scores in overtime on the pass to Miller, but Kuzmenko scores, Pettersson scores, Mikheyev scores. That line right now, what a road trip. And even go back to Colorado where Mikheyev doesn't get an assist on the game winner, but he makes the play with that speed and he forced the turnover and then they worked it around to Ethan Bear. And so if you go back to the box scores, you're not going to see necessarily Mikheyev showing up there, but I thought Mikheyev had a really good road trip. And, I think a lot of people, I had doubts. Was his goal total last year inflated because he played on a Toronto team that scored a ton and he had this high shooting percentage? And I think, yes, there's some of that. But if he's playing with Elias Pettersson all season and Pettersson is playing the way that he is and they are generating chances, then absolutely it stands to reason. He's at 6 goals already. He missed a handful of games. And it feels like that line is just kind of getting going, really. And that was a big goal for him and the assist as well when he laid out to poke that puck back to OEL for the Pettersson deflection. So, I think Kuzmenko's getting a ton of love right now, and so he should. And he had quite a weekend and scores the winner last night. Paterson he's been really good. He's had very few nights off, but kind of quietly, Mikheyev fitting in nicely there. I think we're seeing his speed as a weapon now. And he's on pace to be that sort of 20 to 25 goal guy. If you're paying him as much as they are, that's where you want him to be. But I think his season is sort of taking shape now. So there's just a lot to like in that line. And it was really good on the back end of a back-to-back last night in San Jose.
He's a big reason why that line is as responsible as it is with that speed. It allows him to be responsible 5-on-5. With all the goals scored, win or lose, and this is what you hope for a 500 team, if that's what they're going to be here, is that they're fun. And you know what? Anything can happen in a Vancouver Canucks game. Absolutely anything. But it's a little like being a fan in the 80s and early 90s, guys. And that I remember as a kid, going to the box score, looking for my favorite players' names. And, they were usually daily in the box score. Right now, the top players on the Vancouver Canucks, they're daily in the box score. From Quinn Hughes to that line that you talked about to Miller and Horvat. I mean, for Canucks fans, at least they do get to see some goals and get to see the stars perform. If it is not going to be a playoff year, at least give the fans something to cheer about. And the goal horn's going to go off a lot at Rogers Arena, win or lose.
Yeah, and the goal horn's already had a workout here through 22 games. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, Bo Horvat didn't score last night. That was one of the quietest games for him all season, and that's fine. It's going to happen. He's not going to score every game. It just kind of felt that way for the longest time. But, he's at 17 goals. And then you've got a three-way tie for second at 11, Paterson, Kuzmenko, and Miller. Like, you've got four guys that are on 40-plus goal paces on this hockey club, which is incredible. And so that's where I say, like, they're not going to score 4 and 5 goals every single game. They're going to run into better opponents than the San Jose Sharks, who have the worst save percentage in the National Hockey League. And there were a couple of goals there that kind of played into that last night. But they are going to score a lot of goals. And I think the other thing, too, is, you talk about a team that scores a lot of goals, you figure, they're leaning on their power play. And Vegas, they scored 3 power play goals the other night. Vegas is a disciplined team. They don't take many penalties, but they did. They were out of character, and the Canucks made them pay. And so you want to have that as a weapon in your arsenal, certainly. But go back to the Colorado game. Colorado scored twice in the power play. Canucks outscored the Avs 4-1 at even strength. The Los Angeles game, the win on home ice, 3 of the 4 goals, they're at even strength. The loss to Vegas at home, all 4 of their goals at even strength. And then last night, San Jose's got the best penalty kill in the National Hockey League, and I think you saw that. The Canucks had 2 shots on goal in their 2 full power play opportunities, but again, at even strength, whether it's 5-on-5 or in overtime at 3-on-3. So, kind of quietly here in this run of 5 of 6, they're not relying on the power play. Power play's still there. You saw it on Saturday night. It was alive and cooking. And you want that. In some games, it's going to be the difference maker. But I do think that we're starting to see the Canucks score in different ways, 4-on-4 in Colorado, 3-on-3 last night, and really just at even strength. I think we've seen a surge in their offense that wasn't there earlier in the season.
One of these things doesn't belong when you look at the goals for column, guys. The top 6 goals for teams in the National Hockey League. The Canucks are in 22nd place in the NHL right now. They're in the top 6. The other teams that are in the top 6 are the first place team, the 7th place team, the 2nd place team, the 3rd place team, and the 5th place team. Generally, it's the top teams in the league that are scoring goals and the Vancouver Canucks. So, is there some underachievement there? Perhaps there is. Perhaps they're sort of finding their level now.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to hang over them all season long. Those 7 multi-goal blown leads. Like, even half of them. If they had just managed to win half of those games, they are well above the playoff bar. They're probably not in the conversation in the area code that you just mentioned, but they're certainly well up the standings, and just the tenor around this team is totally different. But that's on them. They played those games. They flushed those leads. You want to believe that they have learned and they're getting better, and I think we're seeing some signs that maybe they are getting a little bit better and more comfortable. Remember, Bruce talked about how he just didn't think his team felt comfortable when they had the lead. Well, sorry. I mean, if you're going to have success in this business, you've got to get leads, first of all, and then you got to find a way to deal with that and ultimately get them across the finish line. And I think we're finding that they're doing a little bit better job of that, and that a lot of it comes back to getting saves, timely saves. Demko hasn't delivered enough of them, but he's won 2 of his last 3 games as well. He won the Los Angeles game. They came right back to him against Vegas, and he looked really good for 2 periods. And then that 3rd period happened, and then they went to Spencer Martin. So now there's a decision. They're at home here. Demko coming off a victory. My hunch is you're going to see what they did the last time around, where he won against Los Angeles, and they gave him an opportunity to get on a bit of a run and a roll here. I think that you'll see Thatcher Demko get the call at home against Washington to start this homestand. But if they don't go in that direction, you can understand why, because Spencer Martin was that good on Saturday night. He was that good in Colorado. And right now, it looks like Bruce Boudreau does have a decision to make. But ultimately, in the big picture, not just this season, but for the next bunch of years, because he's under contract, they got to get Thatcher Demko up and running. Any success that they have long term, I think, is going to come with Thatcher Demko. And so, baby steps here. But he was good in the third period, and I think he probably gets the nod against the Caps on Tuesday night.
And this week of games looked a little scarier at one point. Florida below the playoff bar at 10-8-3. And, of course, Thursday will be the big Hall of Fame reunion night with the Twins and Luongo in Washington.
Barkov not on the trip, at least the first two games. And there's some question about whether he'll be available, and that's obviously a blow to Florida. I mean, he's one of their best players, so we'll monitor that situation. But he's not going to play in Calgary and Edmonton, certainly to start the road trip for the Panthers.
Yeah, and that line with Verkegi and Tkachuk amongst the league's best, along with the Pettersson, Mikheyev, Kuzmenko line. Jeff, Sheldon Dries, and we spent some time on him last week. 8-2-1 when he's in the lineup. 1-8-2 when he is not in the lineup. Correlation, causation, over to you, my friend. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a guy that believes an awful lot in individual player records, wins and losses in a team game like this one, and I think you can sort of push that even to goaltenders. In some ways it's unfair to put that on them necessarily when we don't do it with the skaters. It's interesting, certainly, and we've talked about this. This guy's a tweener, but he gives you enough offensively that maybe there's something there for him to be the third-line center. There are still questions about him defensively, and he had the rough go in Buffalo where he was on the ice for all four of the goals, and I think there was another game here recently where I'm trying to recall which game it was, but there was, you wanted to see him make a safer play. Puck winds up in the back of the net. So I think there are still concerns there, and I think some of that's what has kept him out of the National Hockey League on the regular, but there's no doubt he thinks offense. I think Bruce Boudreau sort of has a soft spot for him because they probably, they see the game the same way. Bruce certainly loves his offense and did when he was a player as well. And for an organization that is just so bereft of depth at that position that he sort of stands out whenever they need the call up from the farm. But the bottom line is he's here. I think the interesting thing for me, guys, is, and it was reported on their practice day on Friday, I guess, in Vegas, Tanner Pearson is back skating. Jack Studnicka is back skating. There are decisions that are going to have to be made here. What do you do with Tanner Pearson? Where does he slot into this lineup? And my answer to that is probably nowhere. You've already got Podkolzin, who's a healthy scratch right now. But the Pearson one, to me, is going to be fascinating because I think they have tried to move him. There were no takers. You saw what it cost them to ultimately move off the contract of Jason Dickinson. Do they have an appetite? Can they afford to do that and use more draft capital? But Tanner Pearson has one goal in the season and I think 7 minor penalties. There has been zero bottom line. He's hurt this team more than he's helped it. And yet it looks like he's getting close to being an option here along with Studnicka. So I come full circle in this conversation where I think chemistry and the same lineup on a lot of nights has really played into some of the success here, some of the trust that Bruce Boudreau has in this team. And so, if Podkolzin can't get in, how does the Studnicka get in? How does the Tanner Pearson get in? But ultimately, if guys get healthy, the organization is going to have to make some decisions.
Do you have to treat Podkolzin a little like Demko in that you owe it to yourself to continue to try to develop this player, that you do need to play him eventually, that Dakota Joshua is not so indispensable that he has to play each and every single night?
I think Joshua's been really good. I think there's a player there, and I know that he has been a healthy scratch once, but I love the play that he made on one of the Kuzmenko goals in Vegas, down low, got the puck behind the net. I think he wins. I'd have to go and look up board battles and those types of things, but just to the eye, he wins almost every one of his sort of one-on-one battles, dropped the gloves there late in the game. He doesn't need to fight every game, but that's an element of, I think, the role that he plays. And, to the Canucks' credit, we've knocked their pro scouting an awful lot over the years, but they thought that there was an NHL player there and took a bit of a flyer, give him a one-way contract. And I think he's looked really good in that fourth line. Now that Lazar is healthy and back in the lineup, I think Bruce Boudreau likes an awful lot of what he's got there. So it is a bit of a conundrum. If Podkolzin had a little bit of versatility, if he was a center, it might make things, maybe you could take Nils Aman out on occasion just as a raw rookie, but right now they don't have anybody sort of to replace him unless you slid Lazar to the middle, I guess. But yeah, Podkolzin's look, I am worried. I know other people are like, don't worry about it, sophomore slump, whatever. The fact that he can't get into this lineup, and when he has, the effort's been there, but it's a bottom line business. And I keep coming back to the fact he was a top 10 draft pick. This wasn't a third or fourth round guy. Like, you have to have some expectations. And so, they're a winning lineup right now. I don't imagine that Bruce Boudreau is going to go away from it unless he has to. If there's an injury that came out of last night's game, full team day off after back-to-backs here out on the road. So we'll find out at the morning skate. But Podkolzin's got to be patient. But, yeah, I am a little bit worried in terms of his development.
I don't want Studnicka and Pearson passing him, getting into the lineup ahead of Podkolzin. That's my worry
completely.
There.
And then the Rathbone thing, too. And this is where, the Canucks were out east and the Abbotsford Canucks were just out east, but they're back home. To start December, both of these teams are here. They're 45 minutes away. Just send Rathbone down and get him some game action. Use the farm team. You moved it across the continent. I don't think they've done a particularly great job in the year plus of having the team here, but when it aligns, the opportunity presents itself. Rathbone may not want to play in the AHL, but I bet he wants to play hockey somewhere and get him some games. I don't think Podkolzin's likely to get sent down. Remember, I had forgotten that they sent him down for those 2 playoff games at the end of last season. He's touched the AHL. I don't think he wants that to become a regular thing, but at the same time, if it meant just getting in a game or 2 to sort of keep the skills sharp, I wouldn't be against it. Podkolzin may feel differently, but I'd just like to see them use this farm system that's just down the highway a little bit more to their advantage, and it all lines up here in the first couple of weeks of December.
Lastly, Jeff, you raised some flags at the time with Rachel Doerrie and her dismissal from Canucks Sports Entertainment, saying it was incumbent on the Vancouver Canucks to shed a little bit more light because it was only days earlier that Bruce Boudreau was singing her praises and the job that she was doing as part of the coaching staff. I trust you've read through the human rights complaint that Doerrie has filed. What stands out to you? Where do you think this process goes from here?
Yeah, I mean, on a couple of levels. One is there's so few opportunities for women in hockey, and it's unfortunate as I read through that it sort of sounded like a she said kind of battle between the two that, talking about Emily Castengay, who's certainly named in that, and not being in the room. I can't offer up any insight into what happened behind those closed doors, but all I know is Rachel Doerrie got promoted, was part of the coaching staff, and then was out the door. Just the speed at which it all happened still sort of amazes me, and I'm not sure that this gives us I read through it, and it just didn't feel like there was a fireable offense in any there. To me, it felt like if it got to the HR level, that a strong HR department somehow should have been able to smooth things over, but it was clear that Castengay and management felt otherwise, and so Rachel Doerrie's out of a job, and now it's not a good look on anybody. It's just, and certainly on the Canucks. I mean, those are some serious allegations that you want to believe any workplace is a healthy workplace, and all those types of things. So I'll be curious to see where it goes and how much how many legs this has, and ultimately the end result. But I just I guess this Rachel denies that she spoke to the media. That seems to be sort of at the crux of the whole thing here. And the speed at which it went from her getting just from being in the analytics department to actually being promoted to part of the coaching staff. And that was the trouble I had was in a hockey market like Vancouver. Look, this wasn't an accountant. This wasn't a building maintenance guy. When she got promoted to the coaching staff, I kind of felt that it was incumbent on the hockey club to make some kind of announcement. Even just a simple one-line, Rachel Doerrie no longer works for the... When moves are made at a coaching level in a market like Vancouver, that's news to me. And I just kind of felt that the organization spent a lot of time and energy and stories and videos promoting her hiring, but on the way out the door, it was all kind of done under the cover of darkness, and that never quite felt right to me. And so there's just a lot of unanswered questions around it, and an unfortunate situation, obviously.
Yeah, and as mentioned off the top, I think the one thing that the Canucks are going to have to get accustomed to is the fact that, when you start bringing in people with different backgrounds, particularly when they've had some degree of public or media background, there's a lot of communications that happen on social media these days. There's a lot of people that go out and try to build their individual brands on social media. And I, like you, sit there and look, okay, where's the fireable offense here? And is this simply paranoia about whether or not you've got somebody speaking to the press or even just sharing stories from your own personal social media accounts? We'll see where that one goes, much like with this hockey club. Big game tomorrow, big week ahead for the Vancouver Canucks. Thanks for this, Jeff. We'll talk on Wednesday.
All right, guys. Thanks.